All right, so my name is Tone Vays. I was a former Wall Street guy, and then I just joined the Bitcoin space. I used to write for Telegraph, and then I joined Brave New Coin full-time for a little while. I was also writing there. I was writing research reports there, mostly like Bitcoin trading reports. And I was also helping them build the Brave New Coin Liquid Index, which I still think is like the best pricing index in the space. Though for some reason TradingView hasn't really been updating it lately. Some kind of, I don't know, something's going on there. But it was a great index. I moved all of my charting to it. We took it back all the way to mid 2010, and it was fairly stable without any without any like physical interference. So we like built a formula that went back historically, and it eliminated all these erroneous pricing ticks, and it gave you like a nice stable index with like 5-minute increments all the way from 2010 till today. And then it was like live updating every minute, which might have been a little too granular. Since then, I think they've upped it a little bit to like 2 or 3 minutes because there were some off numbers slowly getting in, so too granular on an index like that is a little rough. But anyway, so that's what I was doing. Lately, I've just been going to conferences, trying to explain to people what a blockchain is, which has been extremely difficult lately. I try to just walk people through it. You have this word blockchain, and to people like me, it means basically the revolutionary technology of proof of work that makes transactions irreversible up to this point, and it makes these transactions censorship resistant up to this point. And that's one end of the spectrum. But the other end of the spectrum of what people are calling a blockchain is an Excel spreadsheet as a Google Doc. And I try to explain to all these people at these conferences, like when someone says the word blockchain, either you have to, get on their ass and have them explain to you which side of the spectrum you're on, or you need to figure that out for yourself. And I guarantee you 90% of the time it'll be a lot closer to a Google spreadsheet than like an Excel spreadsheet as a shareable Google Doc than it is, the Satoshi Nakamoto consensus. So that's what I've been doing, and for some reason I somehow got into scam busting. I don't even know how I fell into that. But I've basically been doing the same thing that Bitcoin Uncensored guys have been doing. I think I even been doing it. Well, they started their podcast probably a little bit later than I started being on podcasts. I've been a regular on the Bitcoin group. Now I'm on another podcast, Vortex's podcast as well. Also been interviewed by a bunch of people, and I really got into it with the Steemit guys. I don't know, for some reason, and everyone is like, oh, you have an agenda, it's a personal vendetta against Dan. I didn't know who Ned was at the time when I started, but obviously now it's Ned and Dan. And I admit to it, I'm like, of course I have a personal agenda. I don't like Dan Larimer because he's a scammer. I have a personal agenda that they're running a scam. And if I did over 100 hours of research and work, I'm like, who the hell do you expect to do that kind of work for free with no compensation and not have an agenda to do it? I set out to prove that Steemit was a scam, and it was so freaking easy. All right, so now let's get on with Steemit being a scam. So
Yes.
where do you want me to start? The economics,
I have a question. I have a question right off the bat. There's 3 tokens from what I understand: Steemit, Steem, and something else. Let's start with the economics of that. How is that part of scam?
Okay, so they do have 3 tokens. They have the Steem token, they have the Steem dollar token, and they have the Steem power token. Now keep in mind, I'm saying all this because I actually read their white paper, and this all started because, excuse me guys, this all started because I just took a look at their about page on their website, and I'm like, oh, this is obviously a scam. And then everyone yelled at me to go read the white paper, And like, I should show you those YouTube comments. It was insane. And I'm like, all right, you want me to read the white paper? I'll read the white paper. It was 44 pages. And so I learned how these things work just by reading and looking at the white paper. I never actually used any of those tokens. Like, I've never had a Steemit account. I never posted on Steemit. I never traded it. So it's possible that I might get something wrong here, but my knowledge is all theoretical based on what I read and understood. Okay, so the three tokens. So you have the Steem token, which is your base token, but they don't want you holding that token because that would like allow you to like hold Steem. You're not going to be able to vote on it, but then you would just you would just be able to sell it immediately on the market. That's the Steem token. So because they don't want you holding this Steem token, they charge you a penalty, I think, of 0.19% per day. So 0.2% per day penalty. And I have screenshots of all this where I kind of explained it in a graphical form. I don't know if I can post images in the chat.
Yeah, you can link it and then people can click it in.
Link it. Oh, let me do that.
Oh, you have an actual image like on your
computer? I have a PDF if you guys want to download that.
Yeah. I want to
just
look into
post the links.
Okay.
Shot, you got anything to ask? I mean, you were convinced it's not a scam.
Well, what's the difference between it being just a regular shitcoin? Just sounds like another shitcoin to me.
It's exactly what it is, man.
It is another shitcoin. It's just, because you're right. It is another shitcoin, but it was like the way this one was marketed, and the
people
way
that got behind it.
The people that got behind it, and these people don't realize that they're profiting off of their followers. In a way that I'm not happy with. All right, hold on. Let me get that link. Hold on.
Yeah.
I wanted to add earlier stuff. I wanted to add to his comment about what a blockchain is, and proof of work is definitely one of them. But another thing is the double spending problem. I mean, this big thing that the quote unquote blockchain solved was the double spending problem. Proof of work we had. I mean, Adam Beck just made it more sufficient. But all of these technologies that Bitcoin has are old. But the blockchain, how it puts it all together, solved the double spending problem. And that's how we have currency today, and that's how we get digital scarcity. Proof of work is what makes it fun and valuable.
Alright, so I just gave you guys the link. So the first one is the PDF to the document, and the second one is the article I wrote that references that PDF. So you can grab the PDF. And then I'll tell you what page to scroll to, and then we can talk about each page. I think it's better to just go from the top.
Sounds good.
Right, so on the first page, right, like I said, this was a shitload of work, and I scammed myself by doing it because I saw the white paper was 44 pages, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna prove that there's a description of a scam on every page, and then as I'm going through it, I'm like, man, this is not an easy exercise. Anyway, so the first page, right? So everyone told me about Steem, so I go open Steem, and the first name I see is Dan Larimer. And I'm like, what the hell? Dan Larimer? So I immediately looked that up, and I just made a joke. I'm like, shouldn't you have your other blockchain, the other scam coin you should be working on? And then I also pointed out that Dan Larimer, on that first page, if you go all the way to the bottom, the famous quote of Satoshi saying, if you don't believe me or don't get it, I don't have time to convince you. That was the famous quote that Satoshi said to someone that just couldn't understand what a blockchain was. And he said this to Dan Larimer back in 2010.
Nice find, man.
So that's the guy. That's the guy everyone's following. Because, I mean, you can read that whole thread. And it's easy for you guys to find. This was back when Dan Larimer was saying that proof of work is inefficient and it needs to be proof of stake and all this other nonsense. And then Larimer set out to prove Satoshi wrong and started BitShares.
Damn, you did some fucking serious work here.
I wasn't even in Bitcoin at the time, right? Like I guess. See, that's the thing. It's like, when did you become a Bitcoiner is a big question, because I heard of it in like late 2010, early 2011 because of WikiLeaks. This is one of those times where I was like, damn, I really wish I was like, at least a recreational drug user, because then maybe I would have heard of it early during the early Silk Road days of 2011. I mean, I heard of it in the WikiLeaks thing back in like early 2011, and then I kind of ignored it. Then I Googled Bitcoin in 2012, and all I saw was mining, and I'm like, I don't have time for this. I'm working like 12-hour days. And then in 2013, I finally went out to local Bitcoins, got my first Bitcoin in 2013 on that run up to 250. And then I became a public figure and started writing and doing conferences in like 2014. So I guess I'm not a noob anymore, but a year ago you can probably still call me a noob. All right, so go ahead.
My big, I don't know anything about this. I mean, all I know is from what you said. But the one thing I do know, I know proof of stake, and I know that any coin that goes onto proof of stake is a joke to begin with. I mean, it's not even worth looking at. But this is just reading this is just insane. This is even worse than anything else I've seen.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but it's more than just proof of stake. I mean, it's obvious to me that but you can't just say proof of stake is a scam. It's like, okay, fine, I'll go deeper. I'll get into it. So the next page of the Steemit paper, because a lot of it, so I go from page 1 straight to page 5 because it's all credits and, table of contents. There's no content there. And then the next page is just an overview. And this is just me reading their white paper in real time, just one page at a time. And then I see point number 3, it says a stable cryptocurrency pegged to the US dollar. And I'm like, well, I've seen that before somewhere. So I go and find the Paycoin white paper, which wasn't easy to find, by the way. And I'm like, oh, this sounds exactly like what the Paycoin white paper tried to describe. This was their point number 4. It's very similar to Steemit's point number 3. I'm sure you guys all remember Paycoin.
Nope.
No? That was the
a lot of
Jeff
these
Garza
guys,
thing?
A lot of people here are strictly traders. They really don't follow the scene. I mean, some do, but most of them don't.
Oh, wow, no, that was a tradable coin. They promised it would have a $20 per coin floor, and then it opened at like $5.
Yeah, it was XPY, I think.
Yeah, it's XPY, yeah. All right, so again, a lot of it was just nonsense. I mean, this white paper was more like a never-endless blog post. So let's jump straight to page number 6, or my page number 6, Steemit page number 8. That's when I have the picture of the OneCoin scam and Ruja. And that's when they blatantly tell you what the inflation rate is. The inflation rate is 100% per year.
Didn't he say it was 9%?
Okay, so...
Oh, wait, they just changed it. That's right, they just changed it.
Their changes don't make that much sense to me. But again, the fact that they can just blatantly change it, shouldn't that be a problem?
No, that's what I said. I mean, that's exactly what I said to him. I mean, the fact that you could change something like that, to me, doesn't satisfy my definition of what a blockchain is. I'm sorry.
Right. I mean, look, it states right there very clearly in their white paper, Steem is consistently increasing in supply by 100% per year.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, that was my major beef with.
And here's the total, right? So the following page, this is my page number 7 on my PDF.
Wait, how the fuck how does Jeff Berwick get behind this with this kind of inflation? I thought he was all
Dude, I'll tell you in a second. When you understand how this shit works, why Jeff Berwick gets behind it, because he didn't invest $1, and the first appearance on Steemit he makes $5,000. Why would he be behind
I knew that. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I knew that.
Right. But so somebody else put this together, the 3 Steem coins. So there's SP, there is Steem, and there is SBD. So the SBD is, I don't think anyone understands what the hell SBD is. They're promising that SBD would stay within a 1% band of the US dollar. So they created it. It's like a debt instrument. And that's what you use to cash out. but trading it doesn't make sense because it's not supposed to be volatile. What people are trading is Steem tokens, but they get diluted at 0.19% daily fee. And I kept asking, where the hell is this fee going? Right? And like no one's ever answered me on that question. If you're going to dilute something 0.19% per day, like where the hell is this fee going? Because they don't want you in Steem. They want you in Steem Power. That's the SP. And what happens is the SP, it originally had a 2-year lockup. Again, it's hard for me to talk about this stuff because like when I originally scam busted this thing, the rules were economic rules were completely different than they are now. They just went and changed the rules of the economics. I mean, I'm sure I had partially something to do with that, but maybe not. I mean, they'll never admit it. And anyway, so they want everyone to be locked up in this Steem Power because the power down takes 104 weeks. So they 2 years in 1 week increments. So if you have, let's say, 100 Steem Power, and then every week you can sell 1/104th of that power. And Steem Power is what allows you to upvote and downvote articles. So it's like Reddit, but they're creating their own Reddit points. And the more points you have, the more power you have over the visibility of the content on the Steemit website. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. So that's the thing. So the Steem Power allows you to have voting rights. And these voting rights is the proof of stake. So they're the ones that are increasing at 100% per year. So if you hold
That's
all
not
of your
true,
Steem
Tom.
Power... Say again?
That's not true.
Which part?
There's no 100% inflation.
Anymore, or there wasn't?
It's been voted out. There's no hyperinflation anymore.
Well, anymore, right? But again, like I'm talking about the time that I wrote this document.
Yeah. That's Ned, by the way. Welcome back.
Oh, hey, Ned.
Thanks for having me back. Hey, it's good. It's good to be back on the air with Tone.
Ned, I'm talking about the document when I scam busted your paper, so it really doesn't matter to me what it is now, because if you can just go and change your consensus rules, that tells me even more that you're not a blockchain. You never were, and that was my original point.
Well, who was having the conversation with me earlier?
Rules of economics
who
have
was I talking
changed.
to earlier? Was it
It's telling me that you're not a blockchain.
Mr. Hodl? Or
Yeah, you're talking to Hodl. Yeah,
Hodl. So, I think we have to start with, acknowledging each other's vantage points. And Hodl's first question to me was, what is a blockchain? And I said, well, a blockchain is a tool for supporting community interests. Ultimately, it's about reducing censorship. And, in Bitcoin, that's about allowing people to transact without any middleman and without censorship. And Steem takes it a step further. And now it's about voice, and it's about opinion, and the immutability and the censorship resistance on their voice. So if we think about it that way, as long as a blockchain is serving the community and eliminating censorship, then it's an incredible advancement in technology and in society.
But you're running.
Dan, I'm on the phone with Tone Vays right now, trying to set him straight.
But you're running the most censored website, possibly in the world, right? So I don't understand how you can claim that your website removes censorship.
Repeat that. The most censored website possibly in the world. Can you
yeah, because you have three people that can control what is seen and what isn't seen.
Just okay, so you're talking about any website. So the whole thing is, we have a website.
Content website.
Yes, we have a content website where all the information is publicly auditable. The censorship resistance is in the blockchain. Nothing can be censored from the blockchain, period. That's just how it is.
But content isn't on a blockchain. Content is on a website.
Yes, it is. Content is on the blockchain.
No, it's not.
Is what is so innovative here. All the information is pulled directly from the blockchain. You can go to website after website after website that is based on Steem, and you can see the replicability from application to application. And if you haven't done that research, that explains a lot.
So do you have a block
Can you
explorer?
explain to me how content
Yes,
can
we have a
possibly
block
be on a
explorer.
blockchain?
We have a block
Content
explorer.
is
You
on a
go to
website
steemd,
that I can see because it's a
Go to
website.
steemd.com, go to steemdb.com, go to busy.org, go to steemit.com. They've all got the
Just
same
post the link.
information there right at your fingertips. You can use the CLI wallet and you can pull up the same information. Go directly to the blockchain if you'd like.
So if I were to explain it simply, basically the websites, the front ends, just put CSS around the blocks and display them.
I got Dan here, so we're both listening in.
All right. Welcome, Dan. Is that Dan Larimer?
Yes, it is.
All right, what's up, Dan? Welcome to Whalepool.
Yeah, Shot. So it doesn't work like you think it does, probably then.
So your question was, how is the text read from the blockchain? You mentioned something about CSS. You want to just repeat the question?
Yeah, what I'm saying that essentially the websites that show people content from Steam are essentially just putting formatting on the blocks and displaying. And Tone, your mic is hot.
Yes, that's effectively right. The blockchain contains a combination of HTML and Markdown, which then gets interpreted by websites combined with any metadata that's also on the blockchain to figure out what to display.
All right, because one of the problems here, Mr. Hollow had, and I'm guessing Tony's having now, is that they do not understand where the content is stored on the blockchain.
I wouldn't even go that far. My whole thing is that your blockchain could get attacked pretty easy for not very much money.
Hey, wait,
So
Mr. Huddle, did you read the article I posted for you on DPoS? I mean, I want to take the time to explain to you how DPoS works and the economic security that's provided by it, but I just hope you take
listen. I have a very hard time believing that the smartest people in the world, that you guys figured out a way how to make proof of stake secure. Like, I just have a very, very, very hard time believing that.
Okay. Let me try to get to the heart of the nature of the problem that blockchains are trying to solve, and that is to reach consensus. Would you agree that
we have consensus line?
Well, let's define what consensus is, because people throw these terms around without actually understanding what they mean. When you talk about consensus, if you can get everyone in the room to agree, that's unanimous consensus. You don't need any proof of work to know you've got consensus when you've got everyone in the room. So, in effect, what we have with Steam is that each and every day, over 51%, actually 54% of the account holders and by stake approve the entire blockchain. This is direct approval, direct measurement of consensus. It has nothing to do with stake that you can purchase and buy. It's direct approval. You can just analyze the blockchain and see that everyone involved in the platform, you've got majority approval. That is not something that can be manipulated, faked, or changed. Also, there's two aspects to consensus. There's the long-term consensus and there's the short-term. In the long-term, you have this public record that's replicated all over the world that has everyone's signatures on it. That record is immutable simply by the fact that everyone has a copy of it and everyone can see. It's impossible to replicate an alternative history. So that's the long-term consensus. And the short-term consensus is how do we decide what is likely to become the long-term consensus in the next couple of seconds. And in that case, there's effectively a web of trust among the stakeholders where they've identified people they trust to then confirm blocks in the short term. But those people have no ability to manipulate or control or change the blockchain rules. They can't change any content. The only thing they have the power to do in the short term is to censor transactions. And that's only if you can get the 100% of the elected witnesses to agree to censor this transaction. If even one is not part of that collusive group, your transaction will be included. And the only way that you can prevent that collusive group, the only way they can stay in power is if they also censor the voting transactions. But that is something that would have to be coordinated instantaneously. You can't do it as a gradual takeover. So with the concept of approval voting, this is not like other proof-of-stake systems where one large stakeholder can have the majority of the virtual hashing power. It's additive. So a whole bunch of stakeholders collectively have approved each and every witness. So if you wanted to attempt to buy the stake, that's something that is very, very expensive, if not impossible to do in economic terms. So there's a whole lot of security here that comes from the direct measurement of consensus, direct users all agreeing to agree on which way the blockchain's going. There's no ability to steal anyone's money. There's no ability to edit the past. And any attack that you can show on there, I can show how it would map directly over to Bitcoin as well.
All right, so I have a question then. So since it's expensive to buy out the stake, how much stake does the Steemit account, which is controlled by a few people, plus your account, Dan, plus your account, Ned? So all of that Steem power combined, what percentage of the entire network is just those three accounts?
So since the beginning, we've had a large stake, and the purpose of these stakes has been clearly stated, and that is to grow the network. You know, as this blockchain came into existence, we're talking about.
You're not answering the question.
It's at least 55% probably those three accounts. Oh no,
so
51.
So it's obvious. It's obvious why no one can take the majority stake and why it's expensive, because the three of you two plus the company account.
Well, no, what you're discounting is you actually don't know where the voting rights lie in all those accounts. It's possible to remove voting rights from stake. You can separate the economics from the influence. But it is worth taking the moment to explain that stake is portioned out to make sure that this experiment can get on its legs and grow from being a baby into a child and into a full self-sustaining adult. And it's absolutely our mission to decentralize this blockchain so that it doesn't need us one bit. But there were so many experimental items caked into Steem from the get-go that it was important to us to make sure that we could continue to improve the network and help the community. And we're well on our way to making that all happen.
It's also not about where it is today. It's about where it's going. And the network as a whole has been increasingly trending toward decentralization. It's very much like when Bitcoin was very early on and Satoshi had all the hash power. Over time, it got more decentralized. But of course, now you only have about 5 or 6 people who get to decide what goes in the Bitcoin blockchain because of how the hash power is organized in the community, because of the economics of the system. So from that perspective, the people who have interest or the ability to control Steem temporarily have greater financial interest in the future success of Steem than the people who control Bitcoin.
So, Tone, we don't have forever to explain how proof of stake and delegated proof of stake makes the blockchain secure.
No, that's why I'm getting off that topic. I want to talk about like why. Well, actually, I just want to comment one thing. You can't compare anything to the early days of Bitcoin. I think it's the stupidest argument ever. Because in the first year and a half, Bitcoin was worthless. So you can't compare anything that currently in the first, if you're running Bitcoin and in the first month it has value, you can't compare it to Bitcoin and say, well, Satoshi had it all beginning.
So one at the time.
Let's move forward from the DPS thing. Talk about powering up and powering down.
Okay, let's talk about powering up. So in today's system, it's really a choice. Do you want to participate in the social network? If so, power up your stake. Get influence. Influence has a required staking period to power down takes a full 3 months. So you can power up instantly, and then over 13 weeks you can basically take your Steem from staking position to non-staking position, where it becomes liquid and tradable and fungible. There are also some interest benefits to holding Steem power. So if you're interested in the long-term value of Steem, you can power up, you can get the benefits of interest, and you can get the benefits of potential curation rewards. So if you're an accurate voter, if you're able to lead the crowd in terms of finding good content and content that becomes valuable, then you can earn from that as well. So it's really a choice. Do you want to play the game, or do you want to just be a speculator and keep your Steem on exchanges and that sort of thing? If you want to participate in the system and have influence over the social network, then you would want to power up your stake and get that influence.
All right, Tone, do you have any problem with that model?
No, just I have a million problems, but which we're probably not going to get into. But I have a question. So if you're a speculator and you're just holding your Steem on the exchange, is it in Steem or is it in Steem Power?
If it's on the exchange, it's in Steem. Steem is the liquid, tradable, fungible currency. There's really only Steem. Steem Power is just a staking version of Steem. There's only really one token. Okay, so here's a question.
According to your white paper, unless there's a new white paper, which I haven't read, obviously with all the changes, the holding Steem that's not in Steem Power came with a 0.19% daily fee penalty for holding it. Does that still apply, and where does that money go?
No. There was never any fee. But also, the system and the community has completely moved on from that model. The essence of that model was that there was hyperinflation on Steem, so that Steem was not a viable currency. That it was just a door into the staking version of Steem that gave people influence. And what that did was it turned everyone into long-term holders. You would only want to participate in this system if you were interested in the viability, the long-run viability of the system. And the community decided that they would rather have Steem be a currency and eliminate the hyperinflation, which was a very experimental aspect of Steem from the get-go. So understandably, we've learned a lot, and we completely understood as the interests of the community changed. So now the system is much more reflective of traditional systems, plus these new mechanisms, which are not as extended as they were.
There is an imperceptible difference between holding Steem and Steem Power on a day-to-day basis.
Right, so now Steem can effectively be a currency. It's got 9.5% inflation this year, and then it reduces by 0.5% every year for about 20 years until it gets to 0.95% inflation annually, which goes to pay the witnesses to run the nodes, which secures the network, and also to pay for content creation and curation.
Okay, so why do you think that people's content should be the backbone of currency creation? Why do you think content is so valuable that it can serve as a backbone of currency creation?
I think we're tying those things together really hard there. I think they're sort of two separate things that work together, but ultimately, one of the most major goals of this experiment is to create a very robust and censorship-resistant content network. And the incentives allow this system to grow and become more and more pervasive and give people incentives to integrate Steem as a backend to their content networks. Ultimately, you can imagine an application like Discuss, where you have all these comments derived from a common database, and then the application is as a widget, below the content of all these different websites. Could be Huffington Post, could be New York Times, could be WordPress blogs, and they can now all share Steem as a backend and get the network effect from that, and be censorship resistant, which is valuable to people around the world. Dan wants to chat.
I'd like to.
I don't believe in those explanations.
Hold on there. Sorry about that.
I wanted to answer your question slightly differently than the way Ned answered it. You talk about backbone for currency creation. If you view proof of work as basically make work, the residual benefits of the proof of work are practically nil. If the network is secure already by the staking process, then all we're doing is we're taking the resources, the coins that are allocated, and instead of encouraging innovation in ASICs, we're encouraging competition and fun and user engagement. A side effect of the engagement is that people are voting and active on a daily basis, which means that in turn, 54% of the stake is actively confirming the blockchain within 24 hours. So because of the social network, because of the voting, because of the content, we have active user engagement at much higher levels than any other blockchain. That in turn directly contributes to direct confirmation and direct consensus by the true measure of consensus, which is getting everyone in the room to vote and agree on the consensus in a measurable way. So without the content, there's no financial incentive to transact every day, and without the incentive to transact every day, the amount of time it takes to get enough people to participate to confirm the chain grows dramatically. Like Bitcoin, it's only about 5%.
And I'll jump in with a sort of third reason for tying all these things together. That is that really these cryptocurrencies are subject to the attention economy like everything else. The more attention people pay to any given asset, whether it be commodity or currency or website, the more value they're essentially directing to it. So there's major synergies between the websites that run on top of Steem and allow people to interface with it, and the value of the network as a whole. And we see that through really strong correlations of basically network usage and website visitors, as well as the value of the network.
I'm sorry, I got to cut in real quick. Why do you think Bitcoin is valuable? What gives it its value? Why is Bitcoin $750? Or we're told to have $1 billion market cap?
Speculation. People like Bitcoin because other people like Bitcoin because they believe other.
So the people living in Venezuela, the people living in China, the people living in India, they're speculating on Bitcoin right now. The drug dealers are speculating on Bitcoin right now.
It's better probably to speculate on Bitcoin than it is their own currencies, if that's what you're alluding to. I think that.
No, they're not. These people aren't speculating. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, they're running to a better speculative vehicle.
Bitcoin has value because people are willing to hold it. And when people see the value it has yesterday, they project that it will have value tomorrow. And for people that are doing short-term transfers of funds, whether you're drug dealers or so on, it's got enough value and enough stability to serve the purpose. All value is perceived value. So if you ask, why does Bitcoin have value? It has value because people perceive it to have value, because it provides some utility, provides something that nothing else does. And the same thing that gives Bitcoin value gives all other altcoins their value for whatever reason. So as you get,
can I give another reason? I think that security has a lot to do with it. You don't think so?
The perception of security has everything to do with it. I can, in another forum, I can debate and prove that the perception of security versus the reality of security are completely different. Bitcoin.
Go ahead. Please, can you tell me the difference between the reality?
Sure.
Security and perception?
Sure. The reason why systems like eGold failed was because there were real tangible resources that governments could seize and shut down. And so if any system of eGold or gold receipts tried to get any traction, the government would come seize the gold and the game would be over. Bitcoin's equivalent of physical assets that can be seized is the electricity connection to the grid, which the governments control, as well as the large factories of hash power. If governments don't like it, they go seize all the miners and the Bitcoin network dies for months or weeks until the difficulty can adjust downward. And that's if they wanted to kill it. So bottom line,
every government around the world would try to kill it all at once, and that's how Bitcoin would die?
You don't need every government to kill it all at once. All you need to do to take the capacity of the Bitcoin network down by 50% is shut down China. And basically, Bitcoin is heavily dependent upon resource consumption and upon might makes right. The economics of Bitcoin turn into a situation where
There's no doubt that there's plenty of security in Bitcoin. I think Dan is highlighting maybe it becomes more and more of an opportunity for certain governments later on into the future. But I think what Dan's trying to highlight is strictly the difference between perceived security and real security. We're not trying to say that anything will happen or will not happen. But, it gets back to the example that I said earlier, and maybe this is just hearsay, but when the Bitfinex hack happened, all the miners are in the miners' Slack talking about, okay, do we fork this out? That was...
I think you're lying.
Okay.
Can you prove that?
No, because I wasn't in the Slack. I said that was what I heard. But, perhaps someone can point to the article or wherever that popped up. I don't know.
Please.
Now, when I do an economic analysis of how Steem gets converted into actual purchasing power, do you think it's fair to say that it comes from the speculators that put bids on the books on sites like Polo to buy Steem, to speculate on it?
You're talking about speculation capital. Yes, the value comes from when there's a buyer and a seller. When there's a transaction that happens, it creates a price. And that basically says what the value of the token or the points are. But ultimately, this is a points system, and it works whether there's value or not. That's what's robust about it, and that's why it matters.
There's another factor of giving value to Steem, and that is influence. So you might not care about the value of Steem. You might only care about having power over who wins and loses and who gets points on the system. So the other aspect of buying Steem is if you want to simply publish, you need bandwidth. The Steem token gives you a right to a certain amount of bandwidth on the network. So the more you want to publish and participate, the more tokens you need to hold. So there's real reasons to buy and hold Steem aside from pure speculation. And in addition to all the reasons that you would buy Bitcoin, the fact that it's a currency that can be transferred anywhere in the world, confirmed in just 3 seconds to be practically irreversible. These types of systems have many avenues of value. Speculation, of course, is what bootstraps the whole process. People think that there's going to be more demand in the future than there is today, and it fluctuates on a day-to-day basis. But there's lots of reasons why it has value. There's one aspect about security that I would like to address that the Steem blockchain provides, and that is that when your account's private keys get compromised, because eventually all private keys can be compromised, your funds are not instantly at risk. In Bitcoin, if your keys get compromised, your funds are gone, and by the time you know that they're compromised, it's too late.
We see that in the exchanges.
Exchanges have that. So multi-sig is an approach that Bitcoin takes to try to solve that, but it's the same problem. Once 2 out of 3 of the signatures are compromised, your coins are gone before anyone realizes it. And so things like Bitfinex, which technically had multi-sig, gets compromised because all their keys are compromised at the same time. So what we have is account recovery with a third party. Any old key can be used with your recovery agent to recover your account, combined with savings account. So when someone takes your key, they transfer your money. Now you know they have your key, but you have the ability to cancel the transaction within a certain period of time if your money was in savings or if it was powered up. Those types of security features provide more real use security because it makes the system resilient and can heal whenever an attack inevitably does occur.
Right. So, Bitcoin had these features that Dan just mentioned, the time delay of transactions and hacked account recovery partners. Then, in the case of exchanges, they would not be susceptible to the hacks that we've seen over the last 3 years.
Go ahead, Tom.
How easy would it be to change that feature from, say, 24 hours to, 24 days or 300 days? It's a fail-safe, right? You want to be able to reverse your transaction. How easy would it be up to a year later?
No, it's not.
How easy is it to change that line of code and have it pushed through?
It's not a transaction reversal. And it's extremely difficult to push through contentious changes. If you followed any of the forks that have happened in Steem, Many of them have been rejected. Many of the proposed software patches have been rejected by the witnesses.
What happens is the transactions don't get reversed, but the authority on the account gets restored to the rightful owner. And
what's the difference?
Some transactions, if you've got basically a checking account and a savings account, if you transfer from checking, that's like your cash in your wallet. That's gone. That works just like Bitcoin. If it's in your savings account, then it's 3 days. If it's in Steam Power, then it's 13 weeks. Each week they can
take out a small piece.
They can get a small piece. And anytime you want to update your recovery partner or change your account permissions, there's a longer delay.
And so you link in these features with an application, and now you can get notifications to your phone. And when something happens that you were not behind, it was not your action, then you got the notification to log in and rectify the situation. So it's features like these that are ultimately going to be necessary to make blockchain applications mainstream
and secure.
All right, let me change topics for a second. Again, I want to get back onto content is like your back. To me, you're claiming that content is worth something, and that's why everyone should get paid to create content.
No, we're talking about attention. We said attention is worth something. So it's really attention that is worth something. And what content does is it helps people pay more attention to essentially the blockchain system by making it broader and giving it more surface area.
It helps with service.
If it's not proof of work, it's not a blockchain, so we're always going to disagree on that. So every time you call your customer blockchain, it's going to be me. But
Tone, restate your question because we couldn't hear it because of the talk.
Has anyone on this channel aware of something called transactional cost theory? It kind of describes why the average piece of content on the internet has a negative value and not a positive value.
Yes, I'm aware of that concept. You're referring to the problems with micropayments, that the decision to make a payment is greater than the value of the content itself?
No, it's the value of the content itself, right? I mean, there's so much garbage content on the internet that people think is a Picasso, and they expect it to be on the internet forever, right? So the cost of storing and showing this content, and when you aggregate all of the content on the internet, yes, there's amazing content on the internet, but when you factor in all of the useless content on the internet that people expect to be held on the internet forever, the average value of a piece of content is actually negative.
If that were true, there'd be no economic case for the internet at large. The average has to be positive, or people actually wouldn't use the internet because it'd have a negative cost for going on there. So
the internet does have a negative cost for going on there. You pay money to your ISP provider to get on the internet, and then when people blame companies like Facebook for being rich and not paying their content creators, that's because they're spending all this money hosting your content for free. I hate Facebook as much as the next guy, but I love the fact that a picture I uploaded to Facebook in 2002 that I've lost many, many years ago is still sitting there on my Facebook account. So the way Facebook is profiting is that it's actually aggregating all this content and like kind of selling this information. So that's how Facebook is able to profit. And then they may or may not reward their good content creators. Out of like 1 million content creators, like 10 of them are good, and they monetize that, and they do a little kickback. That's kind of like Google does it as well. That's why you have to be like a huge content producer on Facebook in order to make any kind of money, and that is what, and Google is collecting 90% of that money so that Google and YouTube can let us put on our videos that are costing money for free. If Google was paying everybody for their content, they wouldn't exist. They wouldn't make any money because the average value of a piece of content is negative. I mean, have you guys like even thought about this situation, which is the reality of the situation?
Have you heard the expression that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts? Yeah, yes, if you're mining for gold or silver, the average value of a piece of dirt is negative, and you have to spend the money to mine and filter and process the raw dirt in order to get the gold and silver out. But in aggregate, if you don't attempt to mine, you're never going to get any gold. It's the whole. The value of the gold and the silver that you get out of the earth is more than covers the cost of processing through and filtering and mining all the dirt that you had to process. And that's the same concept with internet content. And the fact that people are willing to pay for internet access is proof that they value internet access more than the money. So it's not a negative cost. They're receiving actual value for it. If you don't value the stuff that you're getting on the internet, I suggest you cancel your internet connection, because obviously, in your opinion, it's negative value to your life. But all of these things, there's a lot of definitions and terms that are being thrown around here. And when you say things like, if it's not proof of work, it's not a blockchain, that's a definition of terms. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you call it, whether it's a blockchain or a consensus process. The result is you've got a decentralized ledger that's replicated all over the world that cannot be
censored.
Cannot be censored or shut down all at once. You've got a decentralized governance process by which a large community of thousands or millions of people can come to an agreement about which way to go. And you've got a currency system that has all the properties plus some more of Bitcoin. Whatever you want to call it, whatever word you want to put on it, maybe we need another word if you say that blockchain is only proof of work. Maybe it's some other kind of chain or some other kind of append-only decentralized log. But the reality is that things other than blockchains, by your definition, can have value. And the value comes from how the system as a whole benefits the users who choose to use the system.
So Dan and Ned, would you say that you have essentially refactored the model of people avoiding paying to have their content hosted? For example, a lot of people want to have censorship-free websites and web content, but they don't want to pay to have a server hosted on AWS and so forth.
Right. They don't want to pay for it, and they also don't want the hassle of it. And, one of Steam's propositions is that, it completely takes care of that for people. If you have a website built on Steam, whether it's your blog or whether you're using Steemit.com, all that's being taken care of by the network itself. These witnesses, it's a socialized cost structure through the cryptocurrency.
Steam's innovative in that it eliminates the need for micropayments, because we don't do hoster to hosting provider, forcing them to pay. We sort of socialize it. It's the same way that no one really wants to pay for roads, but we all collectively pay for roads and we all benefit. The blockchain provides incentives because everyone agrees that the whole system has value, even if one little piece does not. But the only way to get the whole system is to have all the pieces. That's like the only way to mine the gold is to dig through tons of dirt. You host it all so that you can pull out the parts that have value. And everyone agrees we don't know in advance who's going to have the gold and who's going to have the dirt, because we don't want to provide editorial selection of what's real news and what's fake news, right? So everyone collectively agrees that we'll all put everyone's content on the blockchain. We've got a certain amount of bandwidth allocated, and each person can utilize that bandwidth proportional to how much Steam they hold. So it's a system of cost sharing that bypasses the whole micropayment problem in the same way that socialized roads bypass the micro toll problem.
Earlier I asked Ned, had you guys been in contact with any regulatory agencies regarding either the commodity aspect of having a tradable cryptocurrency, but I also want to ask, have you considered the problem of the FCC trying to take down Steem?
Trying to take down, it wouldn't be something you could take down in just the same way that you can't take down Bitcoin. So this is a solution that's been mined into existence, and based on the facts, there have been a couple SEC opinions from lawyers on SEC perspective, CFTC perspective, and it all looks good for us. So we're completely, we're very conscious of these issues, and we take them very seriously, and we've done our absolute best to make sure the system came into existence and continues to operate at arm's length.
The feedback we've gotten from the numerous lawyers we've talked to has been that we've thought through this process very thoroughly compared to most others in the space.
Can we get back to mined into existence for a second? The mining period lasted for only 30 days before anyone knew the Steemit website really existed. So how do you explain that? How do you consider that fair?
It would be fair in the same sense that Bitcoin was mined for 30 days before anyone knew that someone was going to create an exchange and infrastructure around Bitcoin.
No, that's ridiculous. Bitcoin is still mined to this day.
So is Steem.
No, it's not. It's proof of stake. It's not being mined anymore.
It is being mined every day.
Every day. How much of the Steem being created through actual proof of work mining today?
5% of the blocks are produced by miners.
5%. So 95%. So you're claiming that your hybrid system of proof of work, proof of stake is 95% stake and 5% mining.
Yes.
That is your hybrid.
Yes.
You don't think that's ridiculous?
No.
Why not?
If I made a system that was 0.01% proof of work and 0.99% proof of stake, can I call that a hybrid system as well?
The purpose of proof of work at the beginning was 100% proof of work, which was announced publicly. Anyone could participate. There was multiple days of trial run beforehand where people could get the code, try it out. The code was all written in advance, so everyone had the opportunity to inspect the code and see things like comment operation and vote operation and understand that this was a social network on a blockchain. It was all public. The real proof of work early on was being able to actually read the code and inspect and audit what we're doing. And those who could read between the lines of code could see the value in the protocol itself and mine.
Yeah, it's funny to me, a lot of there's people in the BTC or the crypto space, and they say, if you're going to have an innovation, if you're going to have one of these tokens and create one of these things, you shouldn't hype it up. Well, you know what? We didn't. All we did was put this code out there in a small thread in Bitcoin Talk. And the people who took notice and studied it were the ones who, decided that they wanted to participate. And so it's a completely voluntary, completely opt-in system. And it evolved very naturally.
Okay. So speaking of that, I just pulled up Bitcoin Talk, and I can send the link. It was in my document. I'm sure I can find it back, and I can send you a link. So I'm going to read something that someone on Bitcoin Talk wrote. This is what they wrote.
Was it Crypto? Because I know who that is today.
Well,
fudding the project to
I'm going to read something. I'm going to read something, and then you can address it, and you can tell who it is, and then you can tell where this person is wrong. But this is what someone has written at the time during mining. This is in the first couple of days of your 30-day mining that you claim, everybody knew about. So I'm just going to read what someone wrote on Bitcoin Talk back then during your mining process. I'm just going to read it word for word. It's 2 short paragraphs. Now, here's where it gets bad. For the second night in a row, your miners crashed. He's talking to you, Dan, and probably you, Ned. I actually anticipated that because dumb fucks usually make the same mistake more than once. So I had 40 cores going when you went to bed. I brought in nearly every block that night, And when you woke up, you saw what happened and decided to do a relaunch. You failed at cheating, and the only way to win at it was to cheat some more with a relaunch. Of course, I lost all my coins, but you had to do it to generate yourself an insurmountable insider advantage when it came to voting yourself a staker. That is what somebody wrote. When you just said earlier that we had test launches, this is what someone wrote after the second time on the second relaunch, and then there was a third relaunch. So that's what someone wrote.
Well, that's false. It was never launched the third time. And this person, their name on the forum was Eclipse Crypto. And it's a post later that they go on to say that they were fudding to drive away the interest of the project. And Dan can comment on the specific technicals of what happened.
So what actually happened there, which can be audited by reviewing the code on GitHub, is that there was a software bug in the original code that caused integer overflow, which more or less invalidated the entire blockchain. And so the blockchain was reset with a software change to address an obvious bug in the algorithm that affected the difficulty and everything else. Those, because it was only a few days, the amount of value expensed was far greater by us than anyone else, and it provided a more equal opportunity the following day.
For anyone to join in the next time. If the software is then proposed again from square one, then even more people have the same opportunity to join in. So it's a bit hypocritical to, talk about, doing it one way or doing it another when they're, completely at odds.
Yes. So we did all of this very transparently, and everything. Sorry, I'm losing my words here.
Here's Dan.
All right. So what I was trying to say is that the passage you quoted has a lot of unsubstantiated and unprovable assertions about our intentions. They're wild claims, and none of those claims or things actually matter in the long run. For one thing, it claimed that we wanted to vote ourselves to be all the stakers, and that is not what happened. In fact,
that is what happened. The two of you lost the Steemit account 55% of all the coins.
But we don't use them to vote or control the network on a day-to-day basis.
Can you guys let go of the
doesn't make it okay. No, if Satoshi had 55% of all the coins right now,
so
you can't just blame all the reasons to control anything.
When it started out, he had almost all the coins. That's how it was.
But that's when they were useless back then.
And
by the time Bitcoin became relevant, he no longer had that kind of stake. And he wasn't making more just by having Bitcoin. So he was going to get completely priced out because he didn't have the hashing power to then continue making coins. This is the problem with proof of stake. When you mine for 30 days, and then the majority of the people don't know the Steem, then you sit on them for another month or two while your stake builds up, and then the world finds out about the Steemit website, and drive the price to $4 because 99% of all that Steem is locked up in Steem power, where nobody can actually sell it. You have a little bit of demand, absolutely no supply because it's all locked up. That's what you get. You get this drive to $4, suckering more people in, and that's why it's been dropping ever since. It's down to 17 cents or whatever it is. But throughout this whole period, this is where proof of stake is incredibly bad, is that you are making more and more coins just for holding coins. Satoshi didn't have that ability. Yes, he was making more coins in the early days because he was mining, but they were also worthless for at least a year and a half. They were completely worthless, or like under 10 cents the whole time. And once they started becoming money, he got completely, he might still have like 1 million coins that he never used, assuming he's alive, assuming he'll use them one day. But by the time he uses them, he's gonna have what, maybe 3 to 5% of all the coins? And he's not making more just by holding them, other than the price going up, which is, which is not in the code. That's just economics.
You said the price is economics and it's not in the code. And also, like you said, if Bitcoin was worthless for the first year and a half, then let Steem be worthless for the first year and a half, and the price is just whatever the market sets the price to be. The point is that a year and a half from now, or a year and a half from the launch of Steem, is what you need to compare to a year and a half after Bitcoin is launched, not the first week of Steem versus the first week of anything else. All new systems start out centralized and start out in the hands of their creator until enough people learn about it, enough people get involved, that they become decentralized and that they become bigger.
So why don't you make an effort to make Steem worthless for the first year and a half, just like Reddit points, right? Like Reddit points are worthless, and people are earning Reddit points so that you know who's a good content creator and who's a good content moderator and who's a good content curator, I guess. Why don't you make an effort not to have Steem have any value until it got properly distributed across the world, and then have it be added to the exchanges and then promoted as a value? Why did you start off with a value?
It didn't start out with a value, Tone. It wasn't. The miners didn't get it on the exchanges until maybe like a month and a half later. You know,
that's again, right? We're comparing a month later, right? They were mining for the purpose of immediately selling on an exchange, right? The original. This is why it's crazy to compare this to Satoshi, because when Satoshi was mining, there was no exchange, there was no value. People were mining at a loss, and then it became valuable later. They were mining it as a hobby, and people were mining your coin immediately for it to have value pretty damn soon, and they knew it was going to have a value, which is why you cannot replicate the economics of Bitcoin, even though you keep trying, and that's why I feel that it's just scamming all the users that are buying your coin.
Oh, no one's...
Yeah, but Tone, wait a second. Hold on. Where does the value come from Steem, Tone?
Well, it was speculators that know they're going to sell it to the greater fool immediately.
Yeah, so that's not their fault. People putting bids on the books at Polo are giving Steem the purchasing power when they convert it from Steem to Bitcoin.
Right, and that's why it's going to perpetually going down. I will be proven right that it's going to zero, or close to it.
Yeah, I agree it's going to zero, but that's not Ned and Dan's fault. The people putting the bids on the book at Polo or wherever else it's listed on an exchange are the ones giving it the actual purchase.
As long as people are speculating on it, as long as there's attention being paid for it, it's really hard for one of these systems to go to zero. Just because what Bitcoin proves is that almost everything that is something people can control or hold or perceive has value. Everything has some speculative value. It will never truly. Nothing.
I can't put back on that it's not Dan's fault. I mean, he's been pitching and like selling this thing throughout the whole media channels since day one. I mean, they're claiming this thing to be like a currency now, and you really don't understand why Satoshi became invisible. I mean, he didn't want to be responsible for creating a currency, and you guys are embracing it, and you're trying to sell it to the public that this is going to be an actual valid currency that people should invest in, which I don't ever recall Satoshi pushing, buy this, it's going to be the next greatest investment. I mean, he might have. I never really paid attention to all of his writings, but definitely not the way you guys have been at the beginning, so yeah, I am putting some blame on that. You're not treating it as a science. You're treating it as a getaway. It's no different than a Ponzi scheme.
It's absolutely written about as an experiment and a point system. And, what other people are doing with this thing is what other people are doing with this thing. And that's exactly what happened to Bitcoin. People like you show up and they do whatever. They stand on a soapbox talking about it. And that's just something that is out of our control. It's the nature of these decentralized systems.
It wouldn't matter what we said. People will look at what it is and they'll decide for themselves what it's good for.
Right. So this is a point system. It's a content network. It has a lot of potential. It's still the very earliest days. It's fully our intention to continue to help this thing grow and see it decentralized and become more and more robust. And yeah, I think it has a lot more potential than where it is today. It's just a baby. It's going to grow up into a much bigger thing.
The Steem algorithm is distributing tokens to more diverse types of people than any other mining algorithm of any other coin. The Steem user base has more women than any other cryptocurrency. It's introduced more people to blockchains than just about any other new cryptocurrency.
All I'm hearing right now is buzz.
I think it's pretty factual that this has the best female-to-male ratio for any cryptocurrency.
How can you say that? And why should I care?
Hey, why do you care about anything? I don't know.
Well, I care about Bitcoin because of value. I'm holding most of my money in Bitcoin, so that's why I'm in this.
Yes, that's a circular argument. You believe in Bitcoin because it has value, which tells me that if Steem ever did get value by the market, that you would then believe in it, which means that you actually don't have any basis.
No. There's a reason why Bitcoin has value.
Guys, this has been really great.
Yeah.
This has been great, but we gotta get back to coding and get
take care.
Good stuff like that. So appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.